This is special Gavel Alaska coverage of the 2026 State of the State Address from KTOO. In the studio, I'm Lisa Fu, managing editor of KTOO News. At 7 o'clock, we'll bring you live special coverage of Governor Mike Dunleavy's State of the State Address to the Alaska Legislature. You can watch Gavel Alaska's video coverage of the speech at KTOO 360 TV or at our website, ktoo.org. Our coverage tonight will be from a team of journalists from across the state to provide some context for tonight's speech. Joining us live from the halls of the Capitol is Alaska Public Media State Government reporter Eric Stone, who will be covering the legislature all session long on public radio. We're also joined live by Alaska Legislative Digest and Alaska Economic Report editor and publisher Tim Bradner, who also hosts Capitol Views on KTOO 360 TV, and KNBA news producer and longtime Alaska journalist Rhonda McBride. Eric, Rhonda, and Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
So glad to be here.
Thank you.
The Alaska State Legislature gavelled in for their 2026 session this week. Each year, they invite the governor to come and speak about his legislative priorities for the year ahead. This will be Governor Dunleavy's 8th and final State of the State Address, as he is termed out, and a new governor will be elected in the general election this November. Amongst a crowded field of candidates for governor are two former state senators who resigned last fall to concentrate on their races. This has led to a shuffle in both chambers of the legislature. Eric, could you tell us a little bit about this shuffle? Let's start in the Senate.
Sure. Yeah, Lisa. So over the interim, we had a couple of senators depart seeking higher office. Senator Mike Shower departed to be the running mate for Bernadette Wilson, and Shelley Hughes departed to run for governor herself. So that led to a couple of vacancies in the Senate, and those vacancies were filled by two members of the House. Representative Kathy Tilton moved, she's a Republican from Wasilla, moved to the Senate, as did Sutton Representative George Rauscher, also a Republican. And that left two vacancies in the state House. So we have two new members this session. Those two new members are Representative Garrett Nelson, also from Sutton, like Rauscher, and Representative Steve St. Clair from Wasilla. He's a Capitol veteran. He has been a legislative staffer for many years. And so, yeah, we have a couple of new faces. We have some new dynamics, and we're getting started with this year in the legislature.
Great, thanks for that explanation. The biggest topic in front of the legislature is traditionally the budget. On the spending side, there is the operating budget for annual expenditures and the capital budget for longer-term spending, such as building and maintaining infrastructure. But the state can only spend money that it collects in the form of revenue. Much of state revenue has come from taxes on resource extractions, such as oil, and in recent years, more and more from the earnings of the state's investment account, the Alaska Permanent Fund. But that hasn't been enough, and the state has had to lean on spending from savings to make ends meet. Here's Senator Lyman Hoffman, a Democrat from Bethel, at a press conference on Tuesday.
We've been dealing with deficit spending for well over 2 decades. We used to have a substantial amount of money in the Constitutional Budget Reserve account, in excess of $20 billion, but that has gone by the wayside, and we need to continue to save what we have in the Constitutional Budget Reserve as a buffer for rainy day times. And I've said it a couple of times, we shouldn't be spending those dollars on one-time items. We should be looking at revenues for reoccurring expenditures. And that is why I think that the Senate had a retreat and made revenue measures as our number one priority. I know that it is a difficult issue to address, but it has to be addressed because we have not been able to reduce the operating budget. The only thing that we've been successful at and criticized heavily on is reducing the dividend from a statutory level down to $1,000. So it's going to be a very difficult question. I don't know. The governor has said that he wants to work with the legislature and address revenue measures. They may be there. I would assume they're probably going to be substantially different, but one way or another, if we are going to continue to provide the services that the people of Alaska have been accustomed to, that is the million-dollar question. Can we come up with revenue measures this session?
That was Senator Lyman Hoffman on Tuesday. Eric, revenue has already made news today once, and rumors are that the governor might be addressing this during his speech tonight, too. What have you heard?
So yeah, Lisa, as you said, there was an override vote today on a revenue bill that passed the House and Senate last year. That was Senate Bill 113. It was a change to the state's corporate income tax structure that would have brought in, somewhere in the dozens of millions of dollars, although the exact figures were unclear. But that veto override failed, and it wasn't close. It was on a caucus line vote. There were 10 votes short of what they needed to overcome it. And what we heard afterwards is that, this is the debate that is going to be happening all session, and it's going to be a difficult debate. It's really, really hard to get folks to agree on new revenue measures, especially in an election year. These are hard votes. Additionally, yesterday we heard Governor Dunleavy say that he is planning to introduce what he calls a temporary seasonal sales tax concept as part of his overall fiscal plan. Governor Dunleavy has said on a couple of occasions that he plans to unveil a fiscal plan for this session. I think we'll hear a little bit about that in this speech. But these are going to be hard questions. It's not clear how much progress they're going to make this session, but I think lawmakers are at least going to listen with open ears and try to find a solution.
Tim, what other options does the legislature have to generate revenue, and how do you see those discussions going?
Well, the thing that we used to do back in the day was just raise oil taxes when we needed money. That's not a popular thing right now because oil prices are down. There's a lot of activity in the North Slope, and people don't want to see that slow down. And the worry is if you raise oil taxes, you're going to cause that to slow down, which is going to impair future oil production coming down. So there's not a lot of easy choices. Income tax, personal income tax, sales tax have been talked about. The internet tax seemed to be something that was voted down today, or was voted down and was vetoed, seemed to be something that was workable because Alaskans don't have to pay that. But we saw today how that ended up.
Let's turn to the capital budget. At Tuesday's press conference, Senator Bert Stedman, a Republican from Sitka, spoke about maintaining the state's investments in public infrastructure.
And the capital budget, I don't see having a whole lot of flexibility in it. The concern there is that we have not had as much funding in maintenance as that I think we should have. Clearly, last year there was only 3 schools in the major maintenance list that got funded. I think we had a list of 10 when we sent the budget to the governor. This year there's no money in the budget for major maintenance at K-12. There's no money in it for courts for major maintenance. There's no money in it or the university. So if we don't do major maintenance, you're going to end up with just a bunch of junk, and it's not going to work.
That was Senator Stedman speaking on Tuesday. Rhonda, you've traveled to almost every corner of the state, and you've seen a lot of state infrastructure over the years and how they can serve as community spaces. How important are these investments in the capital budget, and what happens when work is deferred to later years? Oh, Rhonda, I believe you're muted.
Apologies there. It's very expensive to maintain infrastructure in rural Alaska, very expensive. And if you let it go, even for a few years, you're actually having to spend way more to fix a problem. Just recently, we've heard about the Aniak School in the Upper Kuskokwim and how their gym is on the verge of collapsing. And so they're going to have to tear it down to avoid having the gym fall upon the elementary school. And I think of visiting Aniak years ago uh, in the 1990s and 2000. And that was a community with some good schools. They had a vocational center there. They were a promising center for the region. And now when you look at what they're facing, and then, as we learned after Typhoon Halong, schools are just so central as shelters for people. And as we see more storms become more intense, those schools are going to be more important as safe places to stay.
Thanks, Rhonda, for that great transition. Climate change has been causing some very visible impacts across the state recently. Here in Juneau, there is annually increasing flooding from melting glaciers. The winter weather has been unusually dramatic in many areas across Alaska recently, and major storms have been battering western Alaska. Eric, you covered the aftermath of Typhoon Halong. Can you tell us where you went and what you saw?
Sure, yeah. So when Typhoon Halong struck, I was sent to Bethel to assist with the coverage. And while I was there, I was able to speak with evacuees and folks who had really just lost everything. I heard stories of homes floating away with people inside, people not knowing where they are. Just absolutely harrowing, terrifying stories. And unfortunately, 2 souls were lost in the village of Quigillingok. The good news, if there is good news, is that the Coast Guard and first responders, a team that involved agencies in the state and the federal government, all over government, saved 51 lives during Typhoon Halong, and it's just a miracle that more people, were not killed. You're seeing on screen images of Kipnuk, which is where I took a commercial flight there to just sort of see the devastation myself and to talk with some of the folks who were rebuilding there. And these are scenes that stick with you. These are scenes that are just unforgettable. And the people that I met there, working so incredibly hard against incredibly long odds, just provide such inspiring stories. But we are going to see more of these. Climate change is fueling more intense weather, and these are issues that we're going to see again and again. And the issue is, how do we, as a state, as a society, respond to these disasters and improve Alaskans' lives?
Thanks, Eric. While a major issue by itself, disaster preparedness and response meshes directly with a major legislative priority: education. Reporter Emily Schwing has been reporting on rural education across Alaska. I spoke with her yesterday about the role schools play in Alaskan communities. During Typhoon Halong, which hit western Alaska this past October, schools doubled as emergency shelters. Yet the buildings themselves are in crisis. You've seen this firsthand through your reporting. When you say rural schools in Alaska are crumbling, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, it actually looks like they're crumbling. In Sleep Mute, about a year and a half ago, I crawled under that building, and its foundation, the concrete footers that hold the building up are literally rubble. They're just like gravel. The structural timbers that hold up walls in some cases are rotten and coming apart. I've also found toxic chemical leaks from heating systems. In one temporary school, I discovered almost 2 inches of standing raw sewage in the basement. I have been told stories by students and teachers about how in deep cold, toilets back up into the hallways and there's raw sewage. I've seen the drywall plaster literally falling out of the walls, holes in the walls that need to be patched up, plumbing issues, where in some cases running water isn't even available. And I've also seen and been told and been sent photos of fire suppression systems that simply do not function because they are so old that replacement parts are no longer even in existence, and that the entire suppression system has to be replaced.
And how widespread is this problem? Is it a handful of bad buildings, or is this something much bigger?
This is definitely something much bigger. I would say that the majority of schools that are in rural communities, so in remote villages that are fly in, fly out only, have been struggling for years with deferred maintenance. But I will also tell you that in an interview this week with the superintendent of the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District, it took him nearly 6 minutes to list out a lot of the issues that he's seeing with his schools and his budget. And that school district, which is one of the largest in the state, has a $400 million deferred maintenance challenge on its hands. So I would say that this is not only unique to remote and rural schools, which are aging, and in some cases, the buildings themselves are older than you or I, Lisa. I would say that this is a widespread issue that we're even seeing in road system and borough organized school districts.
Definitely would agree that you hear about deferred maintenance in schools all the time, all around Alaska. How do these infrastructure problems affect the daily lives of students and community members? What does learning look like when heat, water, or safety aren't guaranteed?
Yeah, so if you don't have running water in a building, you can't use the bathroom. So that means students are leaving school to go home. And in many cases, when we're talking about rural communities, we're also talking about the fact that no one has running water in their homes. So these students are going home to use a honey bucket, right? They're pooping and peeing in 5-gallon buckets that you can find at a hardware store. The other thing is that, if a heating system isn't working, that means kids are wearing their winter gear in classrooms. So there are lots of stories floating around about how when there's deep extreme cold, the heat doesn't function. In Deering, that school, kids go into the gym for class when it's too cold because their classrooms are not comfortable. In the Fairbanks North Star Borough in North Pole Middle School, they've been struggling with a boiler system this winter with all of the extreme cold in December and January, so that classroom temperatures aren't above 60 to 64 degrees, which is cold. And that makes it hard to concentrate as a kid who's trying to learn. This also means that, kids are sitting in classrooms where there are buckets catching water that's leaking from the ceiling. And you also have to think about what they're being exposed to. If you're being exposed to raw sewage or propylene glycol that's leaking from a heating system, and your brain is trying to develop because you're a child and you're growing. What does that mean for your ability to develop the thinking skills that you need? But also, we're seeing these kinds of things, these kinds of exposures happening in communities that already have really high rates of health disparity in comparison to our road system communities.
Your reporting shows that communities have been asking for help for years. How long have some of these requests been sitting unanswered?
There are dozens of communities whose schools have been sitting on that list for over a decade. In a number of cases, like in Sleep Mute, which is in the Cussbuck School District, that school waited almost 20 years for funding to fix a leaking roof, which then led to dozens of other issues in the building, right? If you let a roof leak for up to 20 years, obviously that building is going to start to crumble in other ways. And Sleep Mute's not the only one. There are also schools in the Southeast Island School District, which on an order of magnitude have made more requests to the state than any other school, and have never received funding.
What specific policy levers or funding priorities should lawmakers focus on to make a difference this session?
Funding that specifically supports these buildings and the infrastructure outside of education. Because one thing that we haven't talked about is that public school buildings across the state, regardless of where they're located, all serve as emergency shelters, right? So if we have a wildfire, we stand up wildland firefighters in public schools. They stay there. They become response centers. If we have spring breakup flooding, we see response resources stand up in these buildings, but we also see people go to them when there's a cold snap. During Typhoon Halong, particularly in Quiglingok and in Kipnuk, we saw entire communities take shelter in their public schools. And there is no funding mechanism currently in existence in the state that helps support these schools financially as emergency shelters, and that pays for maintenance of this infrastructure for emergency purposes. So I really think it would be amazing to see that kind of mechanism. The other thing is, like, this just has to be a priority, right? For the last 2 sessions now, I have heard lawmakers say deferred maintenance is a really big problem in the state and for all state infrastructure, but not all state infrastructure houses our future generations for 8 or 9 or more hours a day.
Thank you so much for your amazing reporting, and thanks for talking with us today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
So, with all this on the table and the governor expected to deliver his final State of the State address in just a few minutes, let's take a look back at the past 7 years of the Dunleavy administration and see what the governor's goals have been and how they've been met. We'll continue on the topic of education, which has been a big topic for Governor Dunleavy. How has he done? Tim, we can start with you.
Well, the governor has become very known as a governor who doesn't want to give any more money to schools. He fought the school system has been lagging in inflation adjusting for schools and addressing the sort of deferred maintenance problems that were discussed. One of the solutions to that was to not notch up the base student allocation state funding formula. It's the primary mechanism for delivering money to school systems, school districts around the state. And the governor really fought that tooth and nail. And, finally the bill passed. He vetoed it. It was overridden. He vetoed the budgets and it was overridden. That was amazing. It was overridden last year. So his track record with education is not very good. He championed a number of conservative causes like open enrollment, and he's a big fan of charter schools. Charter schools are very effective, but they're not the total answer. So he has not advanced or made progress on his own objectives. That he's mostly a conservative agenda, and so I would say, he has not been very successful in education.
Rhonda, what are your thoughts?
Well, it was very interesting when I first interviewed him not long after he took office. He talked about how he wanted to be remembered as the guy who kept his campaign promises. And one of the things that was really important to him at that time, he said, was Alaska's very low rating scores. He said they were abysmal at the bottom of the barrel, and he wanted to do something about that. And educators do say that they have come up some, But they point to the Alaska Reads Act, which passed, and they said that that's been a mixed bag. That it essentially has been an unfunded mandate. So it hasn't done what it needs to do. It kind of refers back to what Tim was talking about, that the governor doesn't want to give education the money that educators think they ought to have. And I think that's one of the paradoxes of Michael Dunleavy, because he was an educator. He taught in the village of Koyuk, I believe, as a teacher, so he knows the rural infrastructure problems. He was a superintendent of the Northwest Arctic Borough in Kotzebue, and he understood those problems. So you would think, given his background, that he would be the biggest champion of funding education. So he is a paradox.
Speaking of campaign promises, Governor Dunleavy's signature campaign promise both times was a larger PFD. Rhonda, you spoke with then Governor-elect Dunleavy in 2018, and here's what he had to say back then.
So my goal is to make sure that everybody gets a PFD based upon the statute that's been in place for decades. That's my goal. And we have plenty of money in the earnings reserve to do that. And that's what we're going to be doing.
That was Governor-elect Dunleavy in 2018. Rhonda, let's start with you. Has the governor been able to deliver on his promise of a statutory PFD?
No, he hasn't, because the money isn't there to do that. And his promise also included back payment of PFDs, of statutory PFDs, and that hasn't happened. And over the years, the PFD has diminished. It comes up a little bit, but seems to be a shrinking PFD. Although just before he was reelected, he did have a PFD that was almost, what, $3,300, and it included an energy dividend, and so that was like a record-breaking PFD. So I guess he could say that he's tried to give people a bigger PFD, but it comes back to just balancing what's impossible. Is if you pay a big PFD, you're not able to fund government, and so people can have a big PFD, but what good is it if they don't have good public services?
Lisa,
Thank
could
you,
I speak to that? Can I speak
Sure.
to that?
Yes.
The governor speaks of the full statutory dividend, and what people forget, back in the early 1980s when that was adopted, it was simply a formula in the statute. It was to guide the way the PFD was put together, assuming the money is available. But the money has not been available. So the responsibility really goes to the legislature and the finance committees to appropriate a PFD that's affordable. And that's what we've done. Despite all the rhetoric about the full PFD, at the end of the day, the legislature has to look about, well, what can we afford? And it's, the finance committee's members sit around and they think of what's possible and what's appropriate, and that's what they've done. And it's come down because the amount of money that is available has come down. It's really a very practical and simple. The legislature is doing what it's supposed to do with the power of appropriation.
Thank you both. While the legislature sets the budget in law, the administration plays a big part in setting those priorities with the budget proposal. The governor has broad veto powers to reduce spending and, of course, implements the spending through the daily operations of the state. The governor's first budget brought massive cuts to state services that even resulted in a recall campaign. Here's the governor at his first budget rollout in February 2019.
And so we look forward to a robust discussion on this budget. Again, we believe that Alaska's expenditures and revenues have been out of whack for some time. Part of the platform that I ran on as a candidate was to fix this budget. We're going to fix this budget this year. Questions?
Again, that was February 2019. It is now January 2026. Tim and Rhonda, did the governor, to use his own words, fix the budget?
That's a paradox.
I'll go first, Lisa. He did propose it. He brought in a very hawkish budget director. They did take a meat axe to the budget. Immediately, it seemed to spark a recall petition. When that happened, the governor began backing off. And, very notable, the University of Alaska budget was cut 40%, and that brought national press to Alaska. It made us look very bad. Governor began backing off. It was clear to him that he would only stoke up the recall if he continued with it. So it wasn't too long until his budget director was gone, and we reverted to a more traditional approach to budgeting.
That was Donna Arduin, and she was sort of a national conservative celebrity on cutting budgets. I believe she had worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger, in fact, but she, it seems like it almost was a forerunner to President Trump's second term, where Elon Musk went through and did the Doge cuts, because there were things like close the Museum of the North in Fairbanks, sell the contents, go into various funds that were there for nest eggs to fund things like the power equalization program. Donna Arduin wanted to sweep that out and use that money to solve budget problems. And, I've always wondered, Tim, do you think that recall movement sort of set the governor off, kind of clipped his wings, and maybe he hasn't really quite recovered from that completely
Oh, I
in
think so.
his
When
8 years?
Rhonda, when that started, that pretty much was the end of that hawkish, but take a meat axe to the budget approach that the governor had. Of course, the recall really was gathering steam and was gathering a lot of signatures. And then, of course, COVID hit, and that's really kind of slowed things down. But the governor never really resumed the campaign that he was on, the initiative that he was on before. And so, that's has kind of brought us where we are. We're muddling along.
Yeah, it's always down to the same thing, isn't it? Oil dollars are diminishing. The state has no other source of revenue other than permanent fund earnings to tap. It seems like we've had 8 years to have a conversation about this, and now in the nth hour, we're finally maybe going to be talking about a seasonal sales tax.
Well, if I could speak to that for a moment. Of course, we're not sure exactly what the governor is going to propose, and I spoke with Nels Andreessen at the Alaska Municipal League today, and he said, really, the devil with a sales tax, the devil's in the details. And this one has a lot of deviltry in it because it's complicated. One of the serious problems with the sales tax is it's piled on top of municipal taxes. So if you have a 5% Juneau sales tax, I don't know what it is, but you get a 4% state sales tax, pancaked together, that's a 9% sales tax on local purchases. And that's gonna drive expenditures out of town.
And that hurts small businesses as well, potentially, even though they're not the ones that pay the tax, but it makes the cost of the goods go up for the consumer. And so they want to turn to other sources. The other thing that I think about in looking back at these 8 years is this whole notion of what to do with the PFD. It just every session, especially when money is tight, kind of becomes this football of how big the PFD is going to be, and how much, if we make it too big, we dip into reserves. We wind up taking money away from programs that people need. It seems like we just never get away from that bottleneck.
Yeah, it's a dilemma because the PFD has got, it's got a lot of fans. Obviously, it's very important to people, particularly in rural Alaska. Uh, Low income people, pay a lot of their bills that pile up when the annual PFD comes around. On the other hand, 25% of it goes to Uncle Sam because it's taxed as federal income. So there are also questions that really, does the availability of the PFD at a certain time of year drive up incidents of domestic violence and crime, alcoholism? I do know the one statistic that we can point to is that marijuana sales, by virtue of the marijuana tax, goes up at PFD time. And you can look back over several years of data and you can see that spike. That's sort of interesting. We don't have that with alcohol because it's too, the alcohol sales data is too diffused through everything else. So, but we can see that in marijuana sales. It's amazing.
It's been so great to talk to you both. It seems like we're getting close. We still might have a few minutes. The escorts, Senator Robert Yunt and Representative Ashley Carrick, have gone to get the governor and bring him back to give his State of the State address. And, like we said, this is his last and eighth State of the State address, his final year as governor. Can each of you speak to what you think his legacy will be?
Lisa, if I could say one thing, I think he deserves credit for his focus on energy matters. He's been consistently a big fan of renewable energy, which is sort of contrasting with what our president is doing. But he can be given credit for helping drive some changes to really complex regulatory issues affecting electrical generation. That was a heavy lift last year, and other innovative ideas like sales of carbon credits. It may not live up to his expectations, but it's out there in the future. Very innovative idea. So he's been creative, and give him some credit for those things.
Okay, thanks so much, Tim. We have Senator Dunleavy entering the chambers. Again, he's escorted by Senator Robert Yunt and Representative Ashley Carrick. And as he makes his way down the aisle, he's shaking some hands, nodding, smiling, waving.
Thank you. Well, some of us are excited about tonight. It is the last one, but before I start, I got some great advice from my wife. I usually do when I do these things, and she said, look, before you start, think about this. Don't try and be too charismatic. Don't try and be too funny. And God forbid, don't try and be too smart. Just be yourself, okay? So we're going to give it a shot, all right? But anyway, thanks for having me. This is my last one. And did I already say that? Was my last one? Anyway, we got a lot to talk about tonight. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to have a lot of information I think that you and the people of Alaska are going to want to hear. So with that, I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Dahlstrom, Senate President Stevens, Speaker Edgman, and members of the 34th Legislature. I want to thank you for the invitation to speak to you tonight and to our fellow Alaskans as well. This is my 8th and final State of the State address to you and the people of Alaska. To the members of the legislature, welcome back. Welcome back to Juneau, and thank you for being here to represent your fellow Alaskans. To the people of Alaska, thank you for putting your faith in me for the past 7 years. But before I continue, I want to take a moment to recognize a couple very special people. I grew up in a family of all boys, and I was blessed with a family of all girls. It was a bit of a learning curve, but I think we've worked it out. But I want to recognize my wife, First Lady Rose Dunleavy, and my 3 daughters, Maggie, Catherine, and Seal, who are here tonight in the gallery. I want to thank you guys for supporting me and putting up with me in this role. I know it hasn't been easy at times, but I couldn't have asked for better people to be behind me as we enter this last year. So thanks for being here. I know my girls had to take some time off from the mine. I know you guys know that they all work at the Red Dog Mine, but nonetheless, and I want to thank your supervisors for letting you take a day here and come down here, okay? I'd also like to recognize the members of my cabinet in attendance tonight. Could you please stand and be recognized as well, please? I want to thank you for everything you're doing for the people of this great state. So it's the people of Alaska who had the confidence to put me in this role and to serve them as governor of the great state of Alaska. Because of that, it's you, the people of Alaska, who are in the forefront of every decision I make. Yes, I work with the legislators in this room, but it's you, the people of this great state, who elected me based upon the platform I ran on, not just once, but twice. It's because of you, the people, that I've never lost an election, and it hasn't really been close. Despite what the media says sometimes, despite what political pundits say, despite what my detractors may say, the ideals I stand for and campaigned on are what the majority of Alaskans chose. I believe the choice of the people of Alaska to put me here reflects my sincerity in understanding their needs, knowing their values, trusting their judgment, and keeping my commitments to them. I've been serving the people of Alaska in one capacity or another for more than 40 years. Other than marrying my wife, Rose, and having our kids, serving the people of this great state as both an educator and elected official has been the best decision of my life. From serving small groups of school children in the wonderful town of Koyuk, Alaska, to serving the entire state as governor, I've truly been blessed. Service is an honor, it's a privilege, it's a responsibility to live up to every single day, and I'll forever be grateful to the people of Alaska for trusting me with this job for the past 7 years, and for one more. In this last year, I'm looking forward to working with all 60 of you here in the legislature to move an Alaska-centric agenda forward. Not an agenda that is constructed or pushed by and that benefits special interests. We know who they are. You know who they are. They walk the halls of Juneau looking for opportunity to push their own agenda, and too often they do this at the expense of the people we serve. They try to get on your calendar for their own gain to co-opt agendas that are focused on outcomes and that aren't best for Alaskans. These are the groups that will have a party the day I leave office, and that's understandable because I haven't been very accommodating to them while I've been in office. Well, that won't change this year either, but for the next year, I plan on working with each and every one of you to advance great policy that benefits the mothers, the fathers, the sons, the daughters, the Alaskans who count on us to do the right thing. It's also important to remember that we don't have a parliamentary form of government. The executive branch is separate from the legislative branch. The framers of both the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of Alaska were very, very clear on this point. They wanted 3 distinct branches of government to protect people's liberty and their pocketbooks. Our founding fathers, arguably the greatest collection of minds in one spot at one time in history, had just separated from Great Britain in a protracted civil war that ended in our revolution. They risked everything to create this country that'll soon be celebrating 250 years of existence. They thought long and hard about how they would construct this government that we have today, a government with 3 distinct branches. Once again, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. They wanted a government full of checks and balances. They wanted a government that was limited in scope and reach. They wanted a government that puts the people first and in charge. They rejected a dictatorship by king as firmly as they rejected a dictatorship by parliament. As a result, I am accountable to the people as you are. But I don't necessarily work for you. I'm not a 61st legislator, nor do you work for me, and that's important. We work together on behalf of all Alaskans. And in my last year, that's exactly what I hope we do. I have to say that every day in this job is exciting, and it's been quite an adventure. The excitement actually started right before I took office, with the 2nd largest recorded earthquake in South Central's history. And that was just the beginning. Since then, the state of Alaska has experienced 85 state and federal disaster declarations. That's an average of 1 per month while I've been in office. Wildfires, landslides, windstorms, typhoons, flooding, record-breaking snowstorms, and a once-in-a-century pandemic. Tragically, we've lost some of our fellow Alaskans to these disasters. But while we couldn't save every life, what we've seen time and time again is the heroism of our people. Our first responders, our National Guardsmen and state defense forces, our federal allies in the Coast Guard, our healthcare workers, our state agencies, our nonprofit partners, and private companies and citizens across the board. Time and time again, they rallied to the cause. They answered the call of duty and saved lives. They are absolutely the best. So if you can join me in giving them a round of applause for everything they do, I'd greatly appreciate it. We saw this heroism in action just this past fall after the remnants of Typhoon Halong surged into the Kuskokwim Delta, sweeping away homes and vehicles in Kipnuk and Quig. Our National Guard, the Coast Guard, and our state defense forces sprung into action. Their combined efforts led to the rescue of 51 Alaskans. Personnel and assets further mobilized to evacuate some 1,000 Alaskans from the affected communities and transport millions of pounds of relief supplies into the region. Our Department of Transportation and Public Facilities was also critical to our response and recovery. In just 3 days, the department completed assessments for 35 communities utilizing drones, GoPros, and remote Starlink connections. They flew more than 300 missions, which was critical to saving lives, delivering supplies, and rebuilding infrastructure. You know, as I traveled the region and spoke with folks who responded to Alaska from outside the state, and we had people from all over the country come up here to help out, I heard over and over and over again that they said that we in Alaska had the best disaster responses they've seen anywhere in the country. That may have come as a surprise to them, considering our vast geography and harrowing weather. For me, for us, I think it's what we've come to expect, but it's something I'll never take for granted. We can't control disasters, but we can control how we respond. And I couldn't be prouder of how we responded to these events, thanks to the brave men and women that I have the honor to serve as governor. So tonight, once again, I want to recognize the leaders of those brave men and women here on their behalf, not just for the response to Halong, but to so many other events over the past 7 years. Major General Torrance Sachs, Coast Guard Captain Christopher Culpepper, the commander of Sector Western Alaska and U.S. Arctic, Homeland Security and Emergency Management Director Brian Fisher, and Transportation Commissioner Ryan Anderson. Could you guys please stand and be recognized again for all the hard work you do on behalf of Alaska? Again, on behalf of Alaska, thank you for your leadership. Thank you to anyone and everyone under your command who's ready at a moment's notice to run toward danger in the service to others. Thanks, guys. There's no question we've dealt with our fair share of natural disasters over the past 7 years. But we've also had to manage some man-made disasters over 4 years while I'm in office, that being the policies of the Biden administration. With at least 74 executive actions against Alaska under his administration, the very concept of Alaska being able to pay its own way through resource development was in jeopardy. No state suffered more than Alaska under the last federal administration, and it wasn't even close. Thankfully, those years are now behind us, and we have a president and administration in Washington that finally gets it. On his first day of his second term, President Trump issued a comprehensive executive order specifically for the state of Alaska. This was extraordinary and has never been done before. This highlights the importance of Alaska on the president's agenda. It has also signaled to the international investor community and federal agencies that Alaska is open for business and it is a priority. I want to take a moment to thank President Trump and his cabinet for everything they're doing in Alaska's best interest and in the best interest of the United States. There's no doubt a positive relationship with our country's president is everything, and it's my hope that the next governor pursues and cultivates a very strong relationship with the President of the United States. What has this positive relationship done for our great state? The list is exhaustive, but here are a few examples. Last August, we received a record of $183 million in federal highway funds for transportation infrastructure improvements. This administration has taken numerous steps to increase oil and gas production, including offshore, reopening millions of acres in the NPRA, finalizing plans to open ANWR, and promoting Alaska LNG on the international stage. Last August, the state of Alaska entered a first-of-its-kind MOU with the Federal Permitting Council to streamline project permitting under the FAST 41 program. This MOU is accelerating permitting for expansions at existing operations at Greens Creek and Red Dog mines. It's advancing prospects like Graphite 1 in Donlin, and it extends to transmission and broadband projects as well. Even projects that could be considered small, such as the King Cove Road, get the attention of this president. And just last month, we learned we'll be receiving up to $272 million per year for the next 5 years to completely transform our healthcare system. There should also be some great news coming soon about the management of our large Tongass National Forest. This didn't happen by accident. Through our work in the executive branch and with our congressional delegation, we've secured historic investments and decisions for Alaska. Alaska is benefiting greatly thanks to President Trump and his administration. We need to do all we can to work with our federal partners over the next 3 years. We may never get this opportunity again. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We finally have a president that believes in Alaska and wants to unleash our resources for the benefit of our people. Can you imagine the progress we'd have made in the past 5 years if the Biden administration had sabotaged the work in NPRA, the Tongass, ANWR, Ambler, and elsewhere? Thousands of jobs would have been created, and development would be well underway. This is why elections matter. So individuals can make a difference too in our great state. Given our small population and our location on the map, we're often an afterthought for many. Because of that, Alaska has always had to punch above our weight, whether it's in Congress, in the courts, or other endeavors in life. The odds are rarely in our favor, but Alaska's history is filled with examples of those who would not be denied. I'm honored to have 2 friends of mine here tonight who have done just that, Dick Randolph and John Sturgeon. Dick moved to Alaska in the 1960s. Like me, he became a teacher in rural Alaska. Eventually, he moved to Fairbanks and became State Farm's top-selling agent in the nation. He could have been satisfied with that life, but he wanted to serve, like many of us. He wanted to serve Alaska in a different capacity, so he got into politics. He founded the Libertarian Party and was the first Libertarian elected to statewide office in the entire United States. Dick was instrumental in mastering the use of the initiative process by galvanizing the people of Alaska to put a repeal of the state income tax on the ballot, which ended up forcing the legislature to eliminate it, probably saving Alaskans billions and billions and billions of dollars over the years. He is an outstanding advocate for individual and states' rights. To those who know him, he embodies the independent spirit that typified Alaska during the 70s and 80s. And he's left a lasting impression on me and many other Alaskans. My friend in the gallery, also named John Sturgeon, has been a longtime Alaskan. John was just minding his own business in 2007, doing a very Alaskan thing, moose hunting with his hovercraft on the Nation River in the Yukon-Charlie Preserve. And then he was threatened with a citation by the National Park Service under a supposed federal ban on such craft. John could have taken it lying down, paid the ticket, or found another place to use his hovercraft. But John knew the federal government was wrong, and he took his fight to court on behalf of every Alaskan. It took 12 years and more than $1.5 million, but John beat the odds and was proven right with an unprecedented 2 9-0 victories at the U.S. Supreme Court that upheld the rights of Alaskans to access our lands. Another thing about John, not only is he a Navy veteran that served our country, he continues to serve today. John has a huge hand in our Wounded Warrior program here in the state of Alaska, including hunts that he invites me on every November to Afognak Island. John invites men and women who have bravely served our country and who have paid a terrible price in terms of being injured and maimed. John gives them a chance to feel whole again, to see Alaska, and to go hunt. So it's an honor for me to go on these hunts every year and watch them interact with these veterans. And I want to thank John for everything, John, that you do, everything you've done, and everything you will do for the great people of Alaska. So every Alaskan, in my opinion, owes men like Dick Randolph and John Sturgeon a thanks. And I'd like to ask both of them to stand so we can recognize them for their dedication to our great state. Thank you, guys. Thank you once again, John and Dick, for being here tonight and for everything you do for our great state. Last year, polling was released that showed nearly 70% of Americans agree with John Sturgeon and Dick Randolph. They believe that Alaskans should have more control over our lands as well. The most frequent words they used to describe Alaskans like John and Dick were self-sufficient and independent. And I believe most Alaskans agree with their fellow Americans. But we all have to ask ourselves important questions from time to time. Do we still believe in ourselves? Do we still believe in our independence? Do we recognize the opportunities we have in front of us right now? It's easy to be pessimistic. It's easy to be cynical. It's easy to say no. Being optimistic in the face of challenges is hard. Refusing to accept things the way they are or the way they've always been is hard for a lot of people. I didn't run for this job just to be governor, just to be called governor, or to go to balls and dances and black tie events. I ran for this job because I believe that if one puts their mind to it, they can change outcomes for the better. I've always been an optimist. I continue to be an optimist. And I'm optimistic about the coming year and Alaska's future. But before we get to that, we need to talk about some of the great things that have happened in the past 7 years. Despite what some in the media would like to portray, despite what some bloggers might want to say and some special interests and political opponents would like to convey, some really great things for Alaskans have happened under my administration. Before my administration, for example, crime was at record highs. Today, we've driven it down to historic lows. That's a fact. Before my administration, we lost jobs every year from 2015 to 2018. That's the longest stretch of job losses in our state's history. In 2018, our unemployment rate hit 6.3% compared to the national average of 3.7%. Today, our unemployment rate is 4.7%, nearly equal to the national average of 4.6%. Jobs have also grown faster than the national rate and are forecast to reach a record high in 2026. That's 6 straight years of job growth, resulting in an economy that's more diversified than ever. Today, wages are also growing by 7.7%, faster than the national average of 4.8%. And our population is stabilized and is growing as well. I know there's a feeling that things can be better, and of course they can. But our economy has been getting stronger and stronger every year under my administration and diversifying as well. There's a few more things we've accomplished under my administration. Before my administration, the Alaska Psychiatric Institute was in disarray. API was failing in its mission and in danger of losing its federal certification. Today, driven by strong leadership, system improvements, and staff commitment, not only is API still certified, but it has expanded from 20 beds to 80 and reopened the Chilkat Adolescent Unit. Before my administration, the Alaska LNG project was floundering, and AGDC was nearly broke. Under my administration, we secured funding from North Slope producers to finish the permitting, and we defeated challenges to the project in court. Today, we are on the cusp of realizing a decades-old dream of delivering abundant, affordable energy that will benefit all Alaskans. Today, unlike 7 years ago, oil production is increasing, reading scores are improving, and the permanent fund has reached record highs thanks to steady and strong leadership. We've We've held budget growth in check at less than 1% per year since I've been in office. By some estimates, this has saved the state billions and billions of dollars. We've paid down debts, and we've improved our credit ratings across the board. Our Treasury Division managers delivered 10% returns for our retirement systems last year and have generated $20 billion in gains during my administration. Last year's gains across all Treasury managed assets were nearly 13%, generating $6.7 billion in returns. And we've received 4 credit rating upgrades in the past 2 years alone. We've set up the state of Alaska to welcome advanced nuclear power, carbon capture and storage technologies, data centers, and emerging energy sources such as tidal and sustainable aviation fuels. The Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority, also known as ADA, just posted its 2nd year in a row of record net income and has now paid over $500 million in dividends to the state of Alaska. ADA is leading the way on some of the biggest resource projects in our state's history. The West Susitna Access Road, the Ambler Access Road, and of course our leases at ANWR that were restored last summer and now have new life under the Trump administration. Through the Alaska Energy Authority, we're reforming and upgrading our major power transmission system on the rail belt. We're expanding the Bradley Lake Hydro Project through the Dixon diversion as well. By establishing a Department of Agriculture, building up infrastructure like roads and power to our farm and ranch lands, and funding research at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, we're laying a foundation for an Alaska that's more independent and more food secure. My administration has also undertaken ambitious efforts to modernize our information systems across all agencies as well. We inherited antiquated and arthritic systems from software and hardware to a persistent reliance on paper in this digital age. At the Commerce Department, this modernization effort has dramatically reduced processing time for licensing and renewals. In just one example, we cut the wait time to process nursing licenses from 13 weeks to 2.5 weeks. This is real progress. At the Division of Public Assistance, there's been an 80% shift from paper applications to online applications, improving efficiency and reducing errors. Everyone that applies for their PFD online is also familiar with the My Alaska portal. But you may not know that the My Alaska portal is now available as the My Alaska mobile app, which currently has 50 state services you can access from PFD applications to fishing licenses and so much more. Another 50 state services will soon be available through your phone on this app, no matter where you are on the planet, with more services being added continuously. So, find My Alaska in your app store, load it up, download it, and you'll see how easy it is to access state services. Also, over the past 21 months, more than 1,100 state applications on our servers have migrated to the cloud with the Microsoft system. This migration will give our IT systems the resiliency and security we need in the cyber age. And Microsoft estimates that Alaska is on track to be one of the first states in the nation to handle most of its business in the cloud. We've even introduced mobile driver's licenses that have been approved for use by TSA and our international airports around the state. Once again, we've improved services that people expect while doing our best to hold the budget growth in check. At our Department of Transportation, we're capitalizing on our strategic location. The Ted Stevens International Airport is the 2nd busiest cargo airport in the country and is now the 4th busiest cargo airport in the entire world under our administration. Within the past 2 years, we've added 5 new cargo carriers in Anchorage, and this year, with the addition of Southwest, we'll be served by every major passenger carrier in the U.S. Thanks to additions like Southwest, Anchorage is now the fastest growing airport in the country based on growth in interstate seat capacity. Passenger traffic is up 23% in the past 5 years. Cargo volumes are up 32% at the same time. Amazon, UPS, FedEx have all expanded their operations, and the department is leading our initiatives to serve all these carriers with sustainable aviation fuels. On the ground and at sea, we're improving safety in our most dangerous highway corridors as well. And we've turned around the performance of our ferry system. We're revitalizing and replacing our marine highway vessels. We've had uptime of 98.5% for the past 2 years since implementing a preventative maintenance system for the ferries. We're advancing critical port infrastructure projects in Kotzebue and Nome in preparation for expanded Arctic shipping and for our national security interests as well. We've also expanded our maintenance of ice roads to now serve 40 rural communities. Across the state, the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation is addressing affordability and availability and providing aid to our most vulnerable. AHFC has won national awards for its response to the pandemic, and since then, by standing up its housing stabilization program. This program has helped more than 1,900 households representing nearly 3,700 Alaskans achieve self-sufficiency. Through legislation we sponsored in 2024, AHFC is now able to offer lower down payments and rebates on new construction of energy-efficient homes. New housing for seniors has been built in Fairbanks, and new family housing is coming online this winter in Valdez. AHFC has also acquired 600 acres from the University of Alaska for future development in Anchorage, the Mat-Su, and Fairbanks. AHFC has done all of this while returning $300 million in dividends to the state in the last 7 years for reinvestment in these critical programs in both urban and rural Alaska. You know, as someone who has spent many years living in rural Alaska, I've made it a point as governor to not let rural Alaska fall behind. Rural Alaska is what makes Alaska, Alaska. And we've kept our commitments to rural Alaska. We've prioritized rural workforce housing for teachers, healthcare workers, and law enforcement. The Rural Professional Housing Program, which is a public-private partnership that I helped start as a superintendent 22 years ago when I was in Kotzebue, completed 592 units through AHFC. We've grown the Tribal Child Welfare Compact to include 167 tribal governments. And with a legislative vote this year, we can also expand tribal compacting to education. And now, thanks to the Trump administration, we have a federal government working with us, rather than against us, to unleash our oil and our gas, our abundant strategic mineral resources, our timber, and our fisheries for the benefit of all Alaskans, no matter where they live. Right now, the eyes of the world are upon Alaska. We saw this last spring when President Trump's energy cabinet and delegates from around the world descended upon Anchorage for the Alaska Sustainable Energy Conference. We positioned Alaska well, both internationally and domestically, to meet this moment. I could go on and on for some time, detailing the positive things that have occurred in the state under my tenure, and I know as a result of that, the state's future is bright. I know at the same time, we still have so much work to do to create that future for our kids and grandkids as well. So just like the first purpose of the U.S. Constitution is to form a more perfect union, we must also strive to pursue a more perfect Alaska. As the second youngest state in our great nation, we have more work to do than most. And just as I said from this spot last year, I'm not going to take a knee, I'm not going to take a break, I'm not going to run out the clock. We're going to keep working. Even though it's my last year, there's going to be no slowing down. As a matter of fact, my staff and I are doubling down to ensure that we get a number of policies and initiatives across the line for Alaska this year. There are simply too many opportunities for Alaska right now that need to be executed. And contrary to what you may have heard, my time is really not up until December 7th, 2026. And our time here together in this last regular session isn't up until midnight on May 20th. So, we need to continue our work to strengthen public safety also, and put victims first and hold perpetrators accountable. As I just mentioned, crime in Alaska has reached historic highs in the years before my administration. This was thanks to catch and release policies, and devastating cuts to our state troopers and village public safety officers. And to be fair, we also inherited a long-standing culture as well as that tolerated criminals and criminal behavior here in the state of Alaska. So when I got into office, we decided we weren't going to accept these crime rates as part of the status quo with no possible solution. We began surging resources in our troopers, our VPSOs and investigators, our prosecutors, and our response capabilities. We increased the number of trooper positions in the budget, and we hired hundreds of troopers during my time in office. We also strengthened the VPSO program. It was serving just 42 communities in 2018, and we only had 49 officers at the time. As of last month, we've increased the communities served by our VPSOs by nearly 50% to 62 villages. We nearly doubled the number of VPSOs to 84. We also achieved an 80% retention rate in the past 4 years, which is an amazing improvement. Last fiscal year, we also introduced regional public safety officers to strengthen the program. We are already up to 10 officers in that program, and that number will continue to grow. Along with growing our VPSO ranks, the Department of Public Safety has also established a major crimes investigative unit in Western Alaska. We also established child abuse investigative units in the Yukon-Kuskokwim region, the Seward Peninsula, and Northwest Arctic. We now have 4 dedicated missing and murdered Indigenous persons investigators. DPS has also hired 2 tribal liaisons to ensure that Alaska Native communities have a dedicated resource to ensure their voices are heard within the department. We didn't just increase personnel resources, we reformed our policies as well. We repealed the catch and release policies that kept criminals in jail. We passed legislation that put victims first, and we increased the penalties for trafficking in deadly drugs. The scourge of fentanyl is like nothing we've ever seen before. It's impacting Alaska as well. This drug has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives across the United States and here in our great state over the past 10 years. We respond with enhanced enforcement, and our state troopers, working with their federal and local partners, seized 4 fatal doses of fentanyl for alone. We also passed legislation to enhance the penalty to second-degree murder for selling drugs like fentanyl that result in the death of a human being. Our effort making a according to provisional data from the Centers of Disease Control from August 2024 to August 2025, overdose deaths in Alaska declined by 19%. This is great progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. Sadly, we haven't been able to prevent every death, including Alaskans like Bruce Snodgrass. Bruce was Sandy Snodgrass's only son. Like many young Alaskans, Bruce was an avid outdoorsman who loved exploring our beautiful state on his mountain bike. Bruce also struggled with addiction, like so many family and friends we all know. We also know these struggles often come with relapses in the recovery process that is long and often arduous. Before fentanyl, a relapse was often a bump in the road to recovery, but not necessarily the end of it. In 2021, at just 22 years old, Bruce's recovery was cut short by a fatal poisoning of fentanyl in Anchorage. When Sandy learned this from the toxicology report, her grief turned to resolve. She vowed to do something about it. She couldn't save Bruce, but she knew she could save others. Less than a year and a half after his death, Bruce's Law was introduced in Congress in 2022 by Senator Lisa Murkowski to increase federal prevention and education efforts. But as things in Washington, D.C. often go, even legislation like Bruce's Law takes far too long to pass. Sandy didn't let that stop her. She traveled tirelessly from Alaska to D.C. and around the nation to advocate for Bruce and for Americans like him and his family. Finally, last month in the Oval Office, Sandy Snodgrass stood next to President Trump as Bruce's Law was signed into law alongside other parents who've experienced the same tragedies, who fought this fight together and who never gave up hope. We owe our thanks, and we owe it to her to finish the job she started. I know she won't let us get away with anything less. She's going to press the issue. And Sandy, for all your hard work, for turning grief into something good, we'd like to take a moment and recognize your efforts to help end this plague against our people, our families, our friends, our kids, and for all of your life-saving work. Sandy, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you, Sandy, for being here tonight to represent the parents, the family members, the friends, the victims, and the survivors who remind us that our work is not yet done until we eradicate this poison once and for all from our society. As you can see, the pursuit of justice can be long, but it can't be denied in the face of determination. I declared war on criminals from this podium back in 2019, and I meant it. No matter how long it takes, we'll ensure justice for victims and accountability for perpetrators. With this priority in mind, we began collecting long overdue DNA from individuals charged or convicted of certain crimes. In some cases, this DNA hadn't been collected for over 20 years. We've now reduced ODNA nearly by half, with almost 4,000 samples taken since 2021. We cleared the backlog for sexual assault kits that built up over decades, and we put in place the policies to make sure the oversights of the past would not be repeated in the future. Just this past year, these completed tests led to convictions for sexual assaults dating back decades, including as far back as 1993. These policies, though, need to be put into law for future administrations. I want to thank the members of the House for unanimously passing my legislation to accomplish this last year, and I look forward to signing this bill shortly to make these tracking systems and testing deadlines permanent for the state of Alaska and for the victims. The results of these actions in personnel and policy are undeniable. Our overall crime rate is down 41.8% since I took office. Let me just repeat that. Our crime rate has decreased by 41.8% since coming into office. This isn't just a number. That is quite literally thousands of Alaskans who didn't become just another statistic over the past 7 years. Violent crime is down nearly 19%. Property crime is down 48%. Burglary is down 56%. Robbery is down 33%. Motor vehicle theft, and if you remember, a couple years ago when we had catch and release, motor vehicle theft is now down 55% since we repealed that disastrous policy. Aggravated assault is down 14%. Rape and sexual assault are down 25%. This is real progress, but our rates are still far greater than the national average. We've come a long way, but we still have so much work to do. I've always said every Alaskan should feel safe no matter who they are or where they live, and that includes Alaskans in our largest city. Under the leadership of Attorney General Designee Stephen Cox, we're partnering with the municipality of Anchorage to take on crime in our largest city. This is going to be an eye-opener for some of us. If you take Anchorage out of the mix of our state's overall crime rate, our state's overall crime rate then is well below the national average. Let me just repeat that. If you take Anchorage out of the mix, our state's overall crime rate is well below the national average. Well, Anchorage represents 38% of our population, but in 2024, it had 55% of the state's murders, 51% of sexual assaults, 67% of car thefts, and more than 78% of robberies. The Anchorage property crime rate is nearly 60% higher than the national average. In 2024, 74% of deaths from drug overdose or poisonings were in Anchorage. Now, I really want this to resonate. The violent crime rate in Anchorage is nearly 3 times the national average. It's higher than Washington, D.C. It's higher than Los Angeles, California. It's higher than New York. And it's higher than Chicago. We got to let that sink in for a minute. This is far outside the norm. And you know, we don't have to accept this, and we're not going to. I want to give the mayor of Anchorage credit. When we met with her and her staff this past fall, she saw it the same way we all do. We agree it cannot and should not be ignored. And we're looking forward to working together with her and her administration in the city of Anchorage to drive down crime in our largest city. We must do better to protect people and their property. As a result, the state of Alaska and the municipality of Anchorage are joining forces and resources and working together to attack this overall crime rate, beginning with an initiative called the Quality of Life. And we started this initiative several weeks ago with the city in partnership. The first phase, now underway, is focused on retail theft and public nuisance crimes like camping, drug activity, disorderly behavior. The second phase of this attack on crime will focus on drug interdiction. And the final component of this attack on crime will focus on violent crime, assaults, rapes, and murders. We hope to have all of this going by early spring, all 3 components. The goal is to put the resources where the data says the resources are needed. The data says the focus needs to be in Anchorage, and that's why we're partnered with the municipality on these initiatives, while we continue to surge resources in the rest of Alaska as well. Again, public safety has been my #1 priority, and it will continue to be so until the very last day of my term. And together, we can make sure Anchorage isn't just a safer place, but one of the safest places in the country for everyone who lives there and for those who visit from outside and around the world. The progress we've made in public safety isn't permanent. It can be undone with a return to the poor policies of the past and a lack of commitment that my administration had inherited. Policies must come with focus and an objective, followed by execution to achieve that objective. We've proven this works when it comes to public safety. Policy and execution are also making a difference in our educational outcomes. Take the READS Act, for example, which barely passed by 1 vote in this chamber in 2022. After just 2 years, we know the READS Act is working. We know this policy is working. During the 2024-25 school year, 44% of 3rd graders were reading at the national benchmark to begin the year. By the end of the year, 60% were reading at the benchmark level. This is real improvement. This is fantastic improvement. Kindergartners saw the biggest jump. At the start of the school year, only 23% were reading at the benchmark level. By the end of the year, 62% were reading at the benchmark level. This is phenomenal improvement, folks. So we want to do better, and we will do better if we keep our focus on outcomes and not just funding. I believe with all my heart, as an educator and as a parent, that ensuring a quality education for everyone is a moral imperative, and we have a moral obligation to do something about it. Dead last is not acceptable. We can't wait. Our kids can't wait. So it's past time that the voices of parents and students are given the same weight as some of the voices of special interest who oftentimes roam the halls in Juneau, whispering to all of us in the hopes that they wait me out. The education legislation I filed is still live and can be acted upon this year. We can increase access to public charter schools for all students, create an open enrollment system, address teacher retention with incentive payments, and make targeted investments with accountability-based reforms. We can also provide more of our Native students with meaningful, culturally relevant education through tribal compacting. We have the time to do something now. We have 120 days to put in place good educational policies. Legislators in other states do this. For example, in Utah last year, their legislature passed 582 bills in 45 days. That's 13 bills per day. In Arkansas, their legislature passed 1,000 bills in 97 days, or about 10 bills per day. In Alaska, a little slow, we passed about 33 pieces of legislation in 120 days. It's about 1 bill every 4 days. So what am I trying to say? I think we can all agree this being our last year together with a number of good bills to consider across the board, not just my bills, but legislative introduced bills as well. We have the opportunity and we have the time to focus on improving educational outcomes if this is something we want to do. I'm always an optimist, and I believe that people in this room can accomplish big things, whether it's in public education, public safety, or stabilizing our fiscal situation. We've got the time to do it. We've got the smarts to do it. We just have to have the desire to do it. Alaska has always been viewed as having the most volatile fiscal and budgeting process as well, more so than any other state in the country. When you talk to investors, when you talk to think tanks, when you talk to others, they see Alaska as being inherently volatile when it comes to budgeting and fiscals. We're the only state that relies so heavily on the price of one single commodity, oil, that changes year to year or even hour to hour, and we watch it every single day. During my time in office, we've seen extremes in both oil and the PFD. We've seen $3 a barrel oil, and we've seen $120 a barrel oil. We've had the largest PFD in the history of the state, and we've had also the smallest in the history of the state. That, ladies and gentlemen, is volatility. This volatility ensures that the budget is the biggest topic every year in Juneau, at the expense of nearly every other policy, and we know that. This volatile budgetary process has negatively impacted our ability to recruit investment to the state. It has retarded our GDP growth. It has caused deep fractures within this body and within other relationships. And it leads to uncertainty in funding for critical programs. As I've interacted with investors across the country and around the globe and engaged with those familiar with other states' budgeting processes, it's clear that this volatility is one of our greatest challenges to overcome. We have a problem, and we can solve it. We can solve it this year with us working together and focusing on this issue. As a senator and as a governor, I've introduced legislation that I believe would help address this issue. These bills that I introduced did not pass, but I remain, again, an optimist. So in my last year, I'm going to once again make a concerted effort by introducing what I believe is a fiscal package, a package that will not only work, but will solve this issue for many, many years to come. This plan will allow Alaska to join the ranks of other successful states that have solved this volatility issue many decades ago. I want to stop our fights over the PFD and the permanent fund, and I want to minimize arguments over how much we're going to spend each year and how we're going to control the growth of government. I want to, with you, create an environment that is attractive to investors from all over the world. I want to inject surety into the fiscals of the budget process. Again, I consider this to be one of the highest priorities we have this session. So as I introduce legislation and the components of this plan in the following week, I ask you and all Alaskans to consider the alternative, where we don't act to stabilize our budget process. Now, imagine a future when we don't have to spend most of the legislative session spinning our wheels on this issue. That's the future we can create together this year. I know that each element of the fiscal plan that I'll introduce will have its detractors. There'll be those that'll say it doesn't work. But the fact of the matter is, the numbers and the elements of the plan could work. And I'm open to ideas that'll improve the plan. But I believe we all can agree on one thing in this room. Alaskans today, tomorrow, and for years to come deserve our best efforts to fix this issue this year and put Alaska on a course to prosperity. So, in this plan, the permanent fund and the dividend would be protected. This plan will grow our savings, incentivize investment, and ensure stable revenue to underwrite this plan. As I've said, we have opportunities like never before, and our future has never been brighter. But in the near term, while we're building the infrastructure to unleash our untapped wealth on the North Slope in both oil and gas, we also have an opportunity to not only stabilize our fiscal regime, but to set ourselves up for success and the economy of the future. This fiscal plan recognizes that in the next 5 years, current revenues may not be enough to fund government, especially with low oil prices. But starting in 2032, with new oil production on the slope and the anticipated gas line with full exports, as well as the growth of the permanent fund, that new revenue will provide the means to fund government going forward after that. It's the next 5 years that need our attention. It's the next 5 years that we need to stabilize. The reality everyone in this room understands is that we can't continue to fund government by shrinking the PFD, which was the smallest in history adjusted for inflation this past year. Using the PFD to pay for government also hurts families, the poor, and the elderly the most. But no new revenue source can be enacted without corresponding fiscal restraint. I'm not going to support a tax and spend plan, and neither should Alaskans, nor should you. A tax and spend plan only doesn't solve volatility. In some cases, it can increase volatility. We need a comprehensive approach, one such as I'm advocating for. We need to move these measures forward as a plan. We need a stable, rules-based budget process that is clear, simple, and well understood. It needs to be something that any other state or any fiscal guru in the world can look at and agree that the plan makes sense. We're not just here to solve this year's math problem, which is to find some revenue stream to plug this year's budget. This can't be what we're working on. This can't be a short-term view. We shouldn't be here just to play politics, and we're not here to play games in an election year, I hope. There's an old saying, if you think you can get something done or you don't, you're probably right. Well, again, we have 120 days, and the only reason we may not get something done is if we think we can't. I believe we can. I'm ready to go to work with each and every one of you to get this job done and to get a fiscal plan passed. Fiscals are important, and so is an energy to the state of Alaska. As I mentioned earlier, our long-sought goal to transport stranded natural gas off the North Slope is closer to reality than ever before. We've had so much wind at our backs lately. We have the full support of the White House and the President and President Trump's cabinet. As we speak, the Department of Energy and the National Energy Dominance Council are working on crucial components to help make this project work and move ahead. Industries of all kinds are eager to harness this abundant and affordable resource for decades to come, not the least of which are our South Central power and heating utilities facing looming shortages. This project is also a national security priority for the President, a priority for our military bases, and for our allies in Asia. In addition to including Alaska LNG in this Unleashing Alaska executive order on the first day of President Trump's second term, the LNG project was the only infrastructure project mentioned by President Trump in his first address to Congress around this time last year. And if you think that was just a one-off, just 2 days ago, on the one-year anniversary of his second term, President Trump again singled out the AK LNG project as a national priority. President Trump said, and I quote, that he has secured unprecedented funding from South Korea and Japan through his trade deals to help develop the Alaska LNG project. Not long after President Trump's address to Congress last year, the AKL LNG project passed another milestone in Tokyo at the U.S. Ambassador's residence. It was there in March of 2025 when Glenfarne, a private energy developer, signed a contract to take over the lead role on the project from our state agency, AGDC. Since then, Glenfarne has been very, very busy. In less than a year, they've made amazing progress. Glenfarne has been formulating agreements for gas purchases and the steel necessary to build the 800-mile pipeline with construction that could begin as early next year. Well-respected international firms like Worley, Baker Hughes, and POSCO have signed firm agreements with Glenfarne and are now partners on the project. Customers, including Japan, Taiwan, Korea, and Thailand, are at the table with Glenfarne negotiating definitive LNG purchases as we speak, totaling more than half of the annual export capacity of the project. Glenfarne has finished its updated cost reviews of the pipeline and is now heading into final investment decisions. Just this afternoon, Glenfarne announced it's advancing phase one. I'm going to repeat this. They're going to advance phase one of this project into execution. And this is remarkable, to be honest with you. Glenfarne announced it has executed gas sales precedence agreements with both Hilcorp and ExxonMobil to supply gas to the pipeline. This is a huge, huge milestone. Glenfarne announced a host of additional agreements today for pipeline construction and for engineering, procurement, and construction management. This in-state phase of the project represents $10 billion in labor and materials, and the agreements announced today include Alaska-based companies such as ASRC, Doyon, and Cruise Construction. Glenfarne also announced that it has signed letters of intent for gas offtake with both NSTAR and Donlin Gold. Earlier this month, Glenfarne also signed an agreement to advance development of the gas pipeline to power the Donlin mine. Just 2 days ago, Glenfarne announced another new partnership with Danos, which is a major Greek shipping firm based in Cyprus. It'll construct at least 6 container ships to transport Alaska LNG and make direct investment into the project. There is simply no shortage of good news about this project, and Glenfarne deserves enormous credit for the outstanding work that will benefit all of us. Communities off the rail belt system will also benefit from the gas line through the Affordable Energy Fund. This fund was established when the law enabling the gas line project was passed. After royalty payments to the permanent fund, the law dedicates another 20% of the state royalty income to energy projects that will benefit rural Alaska. Over the life of the project, this represents the potential of hundreds of millions, if not billions, of dollars to flow into rural energy projects. This revenue can help rebuild powerhouses, replace fuel tanks, and build new sources of energy as well. This revenue will help displace diesel and fuel oil and open up economic opportunities across all of Alaska. Most importantly, this project will guarantee a low-cost source of gas for Alaskans for decades and decades to come. This project will provide thousands of high-paying jobs during construction. And the Alaska LNG project will also spur countless new industries using the cheap energy it provides, creating even more jobs and opportunities for Alaskans, for our kids and our grandkids. This will be the single most transformative project in Alaska since the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. More than anything, Alaska LNG is a dream realized, a hope fulfilled, just like TAPS before it, that will keep our young people in the state and attract others from outside just like them to come here and put down roots and start families like many of us did. Because of our urgent need for in-state gas, I'll be having conversations with you, the legislature, about tax policy that could impact the cost of gas to our residents. We must ensure that the policy we have helps provide the lowest cost of natural gas possible for our residents. And those conversations I hope to be having with you very shortly. Now, I want to take a minute and introduce two of the men that are leading this project here tonight. Glen Farm Group CEO and founder Brendan Duvall, and Alaska LNG President Adam Prestige. Now, I'm going to tell a little story about these guys. So as you know, we've been doing this project for some time. We're trying to figure out this project for some time. People have talked about this for decades and decades and decades and decades. And just every time we seem like we get close to it, something happens and it doesn't happen. So I remember having a conversation with Frank Richards, who's the chairman, the CEO of AGDC. And as we thought things were coming together, we made a trip down to Texas, down to Houston. And we had a meeting with Glen Farm. I had never heard of Glen Farm. I couldn't even pronounce Glen Farm. For the longest time, I was pronouncing it Glen Farm. But we started to do our research on this firm. And we started to see that it was a real firm that did real work across the Americas. And I remember sitting down with Brendan and Adam, and there were others in the room, trying to explain to them why this is such a great project. Have all our permits, we know the gas, we have customers potentially in Asia, we need the gas, on and on and on. And I've done this with a number of other firms that basically would say, that's a great presentation, Governor Dunleavy, and give you a pat on the head, and then you never heard from them again. But these guys asked a bunch of questions, a lot of questions, and there were a number of them in there. And I remember turning to Frank and saying, you know, this feels a little different. Well, unlike others, that wasn't the end of it. They began to ask more questions. They began to ask for more meetings. They came to Alaska. And they began to have this vibe that something might happen after all these years. And then I remember, well, we'll talk about this in a minute. Before I continue, I'm going to have Adam and Brendan just stand up to be recognized, because I want to talk a little bit more about this. Adam, Brendan. You know, this state we call Alaska was a risk from the beginning, and we talked about that with these guys. We were the first to do LNG exports in the world on a continuous basis was Alaska. We built the Trans-Alaska oil pipeline. That was a tough one. That was one vote, and the tie break was by Spiro Agnew, our vice president. But I just want to say that without Glen Farm, without a small company, and relative to the Exxons of the world and others, it's a smaller company. But it's a hungry company. It's a company that does its homework. And it's a company, just like Alaska, that believes that oftentimes you have to take a risk to get big returns. And so I do want to thank you guys, again, for taking this risk. We were joking around earlier. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow, and I said, you know what her wish is before she blows out the candle tonight? To have a big gas pipeline in Alaska, and don't let her down. Remember that. So like Brendan, our great state was built by people with vision. Alaska wasn't built by can't-doers and naysayers, and nor will this pipeline. So one of those Alaskans I want to pivot to, who never believed the naysayers, is a name you probably know. Scotty Gomez was one of the best young hockey players Alaska had ever seen, but he heard a few naysayers growing up. Quote, nobody gets out of this. Nobody gets out of Anchorage. You're not going to make it. You don't have it. Well, Scotty did more than prove them wrong. He made history. Scotty became the first Alaskan-born player drafted to the NHL in 1998, and the first of Latino heritage to be drafted in the first round. In his first season, he won NHL Rookie of the Year and helped New Jersey win the Stanley Cup, which he brought home that summer to Anchorage, Alaska. He'd win another cup with New Jersey in 2003, play more than 1,000 games, and 16 years in the NHL. And during work stoppages, he'd come back to Alaska, go to Anchorage, and thrill his fans by dominating for the Alaska Aces. Despite all his outside success, Scotty never forgot about home. His father, Carlos, who took him to his first hockey game when he was 4 years old, helped him establish the Scotty Gomez Foundation in 2006. His parents knew how hard it had been to raise the money to pay for the hockey life as Scotty was growing up. The equipment, the practice, the travel, but they made sure their son had everything he needed. Today, they're doing the same thing for the youth of Alaska through the Scotty Gomez Foundation. Since 2006, the foundation has given out more than $1.3 million in youth hockey scholarships. It supports 140 kids every year, as well as local hockey associations around the state. It was the Scotty Gomez Foundation that stepped up in 2013 when the Anchorage School District was about to eliminate its girls hockey program and its opportunities for hundreds of athletes. The foundation donated $200,000 to keep the league alive for another 2 years. The foundation then secured another donation from Dick's Sporting Goods to sustain the program even longer. The girls are still skating today thanks to the Scotty Gomez Foundation. There's no doubt that Scotty inspired a generation of young Alaskans that followed him. He proved that anything is possible. And just last year, I should say, Scotty received the ultimate professional honor. He was inducted into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. He's also now, let's give him a round for that. I mean, that's fantastic. Remember I told you, Scotty, when you're sitting under the seal, you may have a future doing something else behind this podium, okay? Congratulations, Scotty, for everything you've done. And we want to thank you and your family for all the things that they've done as well for Alaska. So Scotty, John Sturgeon, Dick Randolph, Sandy Snodgrass, they represent the best of Alaska. They represent us. They represent the risk takers and the believers. Whether it's challenging the federal government, walking your own path as a politician, making it to the NHL, or taking on the drug traffickers, they all show what Alaskans can do in the face of adversity and long odds. We wouldn't have an Alaska without people like these folks, people here today. These are Alaskans who believe anything is possible. And I like to think I'm one of them as well. Because I believe this state has a great future, that it includes opportunities, again, like the Ambler Road, like ANWR, like AKLNG, NPRA, the Tongass, and so much more, as we realize our full potential of our natural resources and other opportunities. With data centers, fiber connectivity, and our strategic location, I believe in a future where Alaska could be a global hub for information, just as it is for transportation and logistics. But we have to prepare for that future as we advance major items before us, leading with the AKLNG project and establishing a long-term sustainable fiscal plan. We also have an opportunity to address issues the average Alaskans deal with on a daily basis, and what we need for the Alaskans for tomorrow. We'll continue our new partnership with the municipality of Anchorage to surge shared resources to combat crime. And we'll keep up our work to produce abundant, affordable energy for all Alaskans. Additionally, I'll be introducing several initiatives focused on childcare, job training, and affordable housing. Alaska is poised for a building boom over the next 10 to 15 years. So we will be introducing legislation to provide both the job training and the child care that's required to go along with it. This legislation will ensure our workforce needs will be met by Alaskans. Alaskans need new technologies in recruitment and training for high-paying skills in professions such as electricians, carpenters, construction, heavy equipment, mechanics, plumbers, and ironworkers. My plan supports and expands internships, apprenticeships, and other earn-as-you-learn programs to help prepare Alaskans for tomorrow's opportunities. The goal is to build an Alaska-grown, Alaska-trained workforce, ready and able to help secure Alaska's future. We'll also be introducing an initiative creating a partnership between the state, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, and willing municipalities aimed at increasing housing supplies in their communities. Under this initiative, the state of Alaska, the state and AHFC will provide buildable land, competitive mortgage rates, lower down payments, down payment assistance, and technical expertise. Partner municipalities will provide long-term tax breaks for first-time buyers. And those communities that step up to partner with us will be at the front of the line to receive land for building new homes in this initiative. It's a win-win-win for our state, for our communities, and most importantly, for our young people that are looking for affordable housing in the great state of Alaska. Through these initiatives, we'll not only address long-standing issues of today, but lay a solid foundation for Alaska's future. We're getting close, folks. Beyond policy, we must prepare for a rapidly changing world as well. We are entering a period of accelerated technological change unlike anything humanity has ever seen. Advances in artificial intelligence and related technologies will eliminate things such as diseases that have plagued humanity for generations and vastly improve healthcare outcomes. Agriculture technology will feed more people with fewer resources. Crime prevention will become smarter and more proactive. Many long-standing problems that once felt permanent will finally be solved. Yes, there are risks. There always are. Every major technological leap, from electricity to aviation to the internet, has come with some risk. Those concerns deserve serious attention, but history shows us something. When guided by sound policy, strong institutions, and clear values, progress overwhelmingly improves the human condition. Alaska is uniquely positioned for this moment because we're blessed with vast natural resources. We're blessed with a strategic position on the globe. And most importantly, we're blessed with Alaskans, independent, resilient, innovative people who understand both opportunity and responsibility, and who believe in our state's motto, North to the Future. So, what will our future look like when change comes? How will future governors and legislators choose to respond? That's the bigger question. Will they see new ideas and new technologies as threats, something to fear or resist because they challenge the status quo? Or will they see them as opportunities to make Alaska stronger, more independent, and more prosperous? Let's not be afraid of what the future may bring. Let's not fear things like AI and robotics. Let's take advantage of these opportunities instead. We can be a leader and an active participant in developing our own future. And too often we look elsewhere for leadership, to other states, to other nations. But Alaska doesn't have to follow. Alaska can lead. We led on pioneering LNG exports for the world. We led on building mega projects like the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. We led on launching rockets at Poker Flats in 1965, with the University of Alaska being the first in the world to do so. We're leading on logistics worldwide from our international airport in Anchorage. We're leading at our Pacific Spaceport in Kodiak, poised to be a leader on the world stage, launching satellites and rockets. We'll lead in Arctic shipping by advancing the Port of Nome as well. We can lead in energy. We can lead in responsible resource development. We can lead in technology, connectivity, and innovation. We can lead by proving that progress can be made while maintaining our core values. We can prove that growth and stewardship go hand in hand and that opportunities should expand freedom, not shrink it. So, as I close out my last State of the State and enter the last year of my 2 terms serving the great people of Alaska, I want to say to the people of Alaska, this has been the greatest honor of my life. I'm excited about the possibilities, and I'm grateful for the opportunities to make Alaska the greatest state in the greatest country on the face of the earth. The future is not something that happens to us. It's something we choose through policies we adopt, the courage we show, and the faith we place in our people. And if we choose wisely, Alaska's best days are not behind us, they are ahead of us. So I want to thank all of you. It's been quite a run, and oftentimes it's been quite fun, to be honest with you. But I want to say, God bless all of you. God bless the great state of Alaska. Let's get to work and have a great year, everyone. Thank you very much. You guys made it through. You made it through. You hung in there, okay?
Governor Mike Dunleavy State of the State Address, live from the Alaska State Capitol in Juneau. This has been Gavel Alaska's special coverage from KTOO Public Media. Thank you again to our guests, Emily Schwing, Rhonda McBride, Tim Bradner, and Eric Stone. And thank you for tuning in. I'm Lisa Fu. Good night.